Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cardiac Wire. My name is Jake Fishman. I'm the host of the show and the editor of the Cardiac Wire. And we have a great episode for you all today. We have Dr. Jeff Bander from Mount Sinai and Seth Koeppel from Us2.ai. And we're going to be talking about Echo AI and bringing it into clinical workflows. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to be here, Jake.
Good to have you here. Maybe to start us off, Dr. Bander and Seth, if you could give us quick intros to yourselves and your roles at your organizations and what your organizations do, and we'll go from there.
So yeah, it's great to be here. I'm the Chief of Cardiology at Mount Sinai West, and I'm also the Associate Director of Mount Sinai Fuster Hart's Cardiovascular Institute. And one of my main jobs really here is vetting new technology and innovations that we can use within the cardiology department.
Thanks, Jeff. Seth Koeppel, based in Boston. I head up business development for Us2.ai. I've been with the company a little over 2 years now. Background is primarily in workflow. So not a clinical bone in my body. I want to disclose that to everybody, but really have focused my career on, how to acquire DICOM images, store them, route them, and most importantly, report them as efficiently as possible.
Dr. Bander, we're, I guess in the grand scheme of things, still probably pretty early in the world of imaging AI. What has Mount Sinai traditionally been doing for AI in cardiology?
Yeah, so as you said, it's really early on for everything. And so AI, blew into our scene as with everyone else's just basically a year ago. And is really, as it's rapidly gained stream and outside of medicine, it's very fast coming in here. So really, both things are at a nascent phase. So we've been working on it here at Sinai with imaging for a long time in terms of radiology. So that's been a little bit ahead of cardiology in terms of AI of reading like CTs for PEs. And that was going on about a year or two before, where it's really become mainstream. And now in cardiology, it's just really beginning. So, we're working with companies like AI Docs now towards looking at calcium scoring and how we can increase efficiency there. But in terms of actually making its way through full hospital and into our workflows, very little has actually started, but Us2.ai is but one of the few that's made it through right now.
Great. And maybe if you could both tell me a little bit more about the origins of your collaboration.
Yeah, I can maybe start there. So we have enjoyed a nice partnership with a company called StudyCast. StudyCast is one of the web-based cardiovascular information systems, or what some people call CPACs. And you can imagine the opportunity to inject or integrate AI workflow into that established kind of traditional manual process of, automating as much as we can of the manual workflow using those types of systems. So plugging the AI in there almost as what we call middleware to run just seamlessly in the background, right? Get those DICOM files coming from the carts or from the archive. Our benchmark is about 2 to 3 minutes to process those. We do this all in the cloud, and then we produce the same output as what the humans are doing manually on the carts today. So attacking that inefficiency, the time it takes to manually produce the ground truth measurements and analytics that the cardiologists like Dr. Bander will eventually look at and sign off on and approve. So kind of supersizing or making those humans much more efficient.
So I will say this is a little bit of a funny story because it's a reverse sales cycle here. I actually chased down Us2.ai because we saw an advertisement and I said, we've been looking for your solution for a while. I think what came to us as a health system was in our offsite clinics with Mount Sinai Health Systems, the largest health system in New York. We have a bunch of clinics in underserved areas where we send technicians in. Sometimes spaces are not optimal. We don't have great staffing. And what can we do to make, some of these processes easier? And the cardiologists who are reading are not necessarily in the room or on site or easily. So, we said, what would work great? I mean, what could decrease the amount of time it will take for a technician to acquire the studies without having to do the reading, get the studies overhead? StudyCast have been a great partner for us, very easy to use. And, we said, hey, Seth, come in. We really want to try this technology out. And because StudyCast was already a vendor, we didn't have to go to the normal hospital, chain of command because as Seth said, we were like ad hocing onto an existing vendor. So we were able to shortcut that, which is why we were able to get a pilot study going very quickly.
And maybe, can you tell me a little bit more about that pilot study?
Yeah, so we said, okay, like everything in a health system. So AI is great. We're all excited about it. It's fun. It's exciting, but it has to have an ROI, and we've got to show value, right? So we said, okay, we're in a tight fiscal space. How is it going to help us? So we said, okay, we'll start to say without even a contract. We're just going to do a couple hundred. We'll pass it through one of the entities, and we'll watch. So we took about 3 or 4 of our doctors who were in 3 offsites, and all of their studies would be automatically processed through the Us2.ai platform. And what that meant was all the readings that you would normally acquire from a technician, and the M mode, measuring LV size, all the tracings would be automated. And the technicians wouldn't have to take the readings. In the beginning, we still did both because people weren't comfortable. One of the big areas of AI is, do we trust? So we want to look at, hey, is this usable? Number one. Number two, is it accurate? Can we trust it? Or no one did at the beginning, obviously, even though Seth showed us nice data, you don't really believe it until you see it. And then 3 was, did it actually have an impact on workflow? So we did about 500 echoes for about 3 months, and we looked at those sort of metrics on a high level. So what we did was the technicians would have the study read by the AI and by themselves. At normal, we'd compare where there were differences, and about 90% of the time it coalesced into the same read. We worked out some kinks at the beginning, but overall, people, at the end of 3 months, were pretty trustworthy of most of what the Us2 put forward. And then the time to echo, I cut back about 7 minutes to 10 minutes of acquisition time, and about between the doctor and the technician, about 15 minutes of post-processing. Right. And the key is that we actually had it completely integrated. So you pushed a button, it went in. It didn't require 5 steps. And I think that's what made the pilot for us successful. And then on the ROI end, so those are nice things. One of the things that we wanted to do, which we didn't have packages for, a lot of echo machines don't necessarily have packages for strain, or they're extra, they take time. And one of the things that sold me on Us2.ai to my administration was, hey, we can do strain on some of these patients that we're sending in, and we can bill for it. It's a $43 code from Medicare. And if these are necessary tests, it's helpful for the patient, helpful for workflow. So it was kind of a win-win. So we did this for 3 months, and it was, to us, clearly helpful.
How has the collaboration evolved since then?
So yeah, we've continued on what we're doing, trying to expand. It's a little bit harder, and I think one of the things that are in health systems going through, getting deeper into some of these larger corporations and getting into those workflows are tough. So we're doing that. I think one of the really interesting things that Seth and I are kind of working on the vision is with point of care ultrasounds. One of the great things that you can do without having to take measurements is acquire images. So right now we have a lot of POCUS is going on in EDs everywhere. Everyone's got a little ultrasound machine, but being able to acquire those images on the go and then actually have a full study with all the readings. In order to have a billable study or a full study that meets criteria, you need to have all these measurements done. And so let's acquire them. And so what we're really working on now is a second pilot where we're doing imaging either in the hospital or offsite with smaller machines. I think Cosmos is the one that we're working with that will obtain a full echo, and push a button and we get a prelim read. So a fellow or a technician can get a read, and before they even go back to get it, we have that there. So to me, that's actually a really exciting area where it's going to decrease time to acquisition and sort of democratize who can obtain those echoes. It's a little bit of a controversial area in cardiology, as we're already, ED docs are doing echoes. Now medical assistants doing echoes, so be careful. But at least from an acquisition training perspective, it's definitely a future area.
Seth, is that kind of expanded accessibility use case something you're seeing with other Us2 users?
Yeah, if you kind of look above my head here, you'll see in the logo, ultrasound anyone, anywhere, right? And I think to just piggyback onto Dr. Brander's statement about democratizing echo, I think that's probably one of the most exciting opportunities we're seeing right now is for the Us2.ai software, is to be able to really just allow clinicians to use POCUS devices anywhere, right? You have your traditional schedule, 45-minute echoes, 8 or 10 a day, which leads to huge wait lists. And there's patients who, show up in the clinic, You can't get them on the schedule. It's months sometimes before you can get an echo scheduled. And to be able to pull out a small device and, even if it's a truncated protocol, just get a few views, an A4C, some just the volumetric stuff, and then have the AI be able to instantly produce a report. Might be a limited echo, maybe not a full, but it's still very useful, and it guides the treatment, the pathway for that patient. So seeing just a massive explosion of POCUS ultrasound everywhere, and of course to be able to piggyback our software with that, I think will make echo much like we're seeing with ECG and other diagnostic tests. It'll make it available everywhere. And you won't necessarily need I know it's very controversial, you won't necessarily need a certified cardiac sonographer to obtain these views. You're seeing these devices now come out to the market with guidance built right in, such that novice people, clinicians with very little training can get decent images, and then software like ours can take over and maybe play the role of that expert cardiac sonographer. It's a dangerous thing to have happen if you don't have it done in the right setting with the right controls, but done correctly, I think this could be a very, very useful pathway.
I would definitely agree. And I think, we always say this, the EKG analysis is, really the prime example. I mean, many decades ago, you tell someone they didn't have to start measuring the PR interval and the QRS and get a read on it, and the computer would do it. That's not possible. Now, anybody can get an EKG, and you have an initial read that gets overread. And I think that's sort of where we're heading for most of cardiac imaging, where it's going to assist cardiologists and imagers to obtain imaging and interpret it faster. It's not going to replace them, but it's definitely going to make it workflow much faster and efficient. So there is obviously always pushback to any change, and it's early, but I definitely think we're definitely going there.
Yeah, I think the days of making measurements on cart are going to be something of the past here very, very, very quickly. It's to me, it's I always use the analogy. It's a bit of a Blockbuster video / Netflix moment, right? None of us get in the car and drive 10 or 15 minutes down the road and pick up a DVD, bring it home, watch it, get back in the car, drive it back 10 or 15 minutes and return it. I think, again, a skilled operator focusing on just getting good images, let the AI do what it's good at doing, and then moving that expert more into the role of an editor versus a doer. So the other analogy I love, it's, if I'm a craftsman and somebody walks in and hands me a power saw, for example, if I'm a carpenter, right? This isn't going to replace the expert human. It's just going to make them much more efficient, right? If I've been cutting with a handsaw all my life and then somebody hands me a power saw, I still need the handsaw, right? There's that delicate, intricate work that I still need to do on a day in and day out basis. I still need to know what to cut, where to cut, how to cut it. But the power saw is just going to make me much more efficient, and I'll be able to produce a lot more results more consistently with a lot less wear and tear on the sonographer's body. I think that's another key aspect here. When sonographers first hear about this software, there's a little bit of a negative reaction to, oh my God, they're going to make me do more scanning. The net of this is that it's actually less wear and tear on their bodies, right? If you can spend 6, 8, 10 minutes getting good views, that's less time in front of the console, less clicking, less of those bad ergonomics, which ultimately will lead to less wear and tear on the bottom. That's important.
Dr. Benner, I'm curious, maybe we understand our current scenario where, there's cardiac ultrasounds and certain locations where they're performed and certain staff that perform them. How much room there is to expand? How many patients are out there that maybe aren't getting the ultrasounds that they need or are waiting for them? What's the addressable patient population that could be expanded to with AI-enabled handheld echo?
Well, I think that the AI, there's two separate questions. I'll just take it one by one. The second part, the portable one is really not so much for, it could be more, I don't know the numbers for rural areas and places where people go in for home care. And I don't know the addressable market, but it's definitely there, and it's been evolving. We've had smaller machines. I do think that when we talk about, the AI augmented help for reading echoes is increasing the efficiency of the current system, meaning, your current echo techs your current readers, you're able to just put more through the system. And I think what Seth said was really important too, which is this is not going to work unless you bring all the parties to the table. So the technicians, if you tell them you're just going to be scanning more because we can process it faster, they're not in it. If you tell them you're going to be decreasing the amount of time that they're stretched over the patient and you're sharing in those cost efficiencies, you're going to have buy-in from the doctors and the technicians, and so that works too.
Can we go a little bit deeper into buy-in from the doctors? Like what's the list of things that are going to be required from they're going to have to see in order to feel good?
It's honestly, it's the most important thing is going to be trust, right? And so trust and verify. And so, yeah, sure. I don't know if if you believe it. So I think it requires them to be hands-on. I think giving a PowerPoint presentation or having somebody pitch them a technology that they can't use is not going to work. So I think piloting, even if people have large studies they presented like ACC or AHA saying this is great, nobody's doing this, especially because this is their lifeblood. These people in cardiac echo and imaging, they really want to believe it and see it work. So to get buy-in, they actually have to use it. So that's key number one. Put your hands in it, measure it, feel it, compare it, and give feedback. Right. Some of the stuff we did early on, we had to make some changes.
So Jake, we met as a group, the Mount Sinai group and Us2.ai with clinical experts, I think every Wednesday morning for 2 or 3 months, Jeff, and would literally do case reviews. So they would flag interesting cases or cases where they thought maybe the AI might, have been different than what the human yielded for results. And we would look at those cases each week and adjudicate them and say, hey, was this, was the AI right or wrong, or was image acquisition an issue, or what was going on here, or what were the guidelines? And that was a really interesting exercise, but that's what it takes to get, I think, people comfortable initially. This barrier will go down over time, but the early adopters, right? Until we can prove to the community that the AI is interchangeable, right? That's I think the key word here is it producing? Because we see variability with expert humans today. Jeff, you can probably speak to this. We see the same echo read by, if you put it in front of 5 expert sonographers, you'll get 5 different results. And so one of the things the AI has the ability to do is it removes that variability. Because it can look at so much more data and do it so fast, it produces not always what you would say the right result, but it produces consistent results. And that consistency is what I think people start to appreciate about what the AI is generating.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's two things that's helpful here is that you're able to, when you acquire 150 pictures, and you have multiple views, sometimes a sonographer will just measure it on 1 or 2, but like here you're consistently saying, take all the pictures, rate them, and use the best one and average them automatically, as opposed to, some of the packaging system that will just, they'll make 1 measurement or 2 measurements and, you've got to go in and measure it. So yeah, there is some consistency in a algorithm that's followed. And the second point is that there is now some, which is, again, we're going to go more into the LLM space or natural processing the data, is that being able to, take things like the TR velocity plus the IVC plus looking at the thickness and diastolic function, actually put together already some sort of diagnosis that will start to lead you down the line of this like amyloid, is this something, some other kind of condition that you would normally only start thinking about after you've read the echo. So there's some early alertness. And one of the things that we noticed early on was the ability to say, hey, flag this echo because it's got these findings, which a technician might not have done because they're just measuring the diastolic function, they're measuring separate things, but only would come together when the attending would read the echo. But now you're flagging, wait, this case looks funny, let's flag it and it goes straight to the attending. And so that was something that I thought was an interesting, change in workflow that we were able to implement.
Curious, what's next for Mount Sinai and Us2.ai?
So I think it's, again, and I think for lots of, health systems, there's disparate technologies in different places. So it's hard to always just take one thing and just run it through the health system. I think we're continuing to roll out, and now our next goal is actually roll it out in one of our hospitals, Mount Sinai West, is on the build to actually integrate it into our PAC system and push it through their servers. So that's something that, again, to be honest, takes time. That's what's next for us. And, using here, we've had some very interesting pilot work we've done on our other end where we've taken some of the data that we get directly from Us2.ai, and we have an LLM that has the patient data, and we kind of smash it together and say, oh, well, you said, looks like amyloid, our data, supports that, kidney function's off. We're going to start to be able to take our data and before a physician sees the patient, start to, get some, we call it pre-charting on the patient. So we already know what we're looking for to target in. So I think that's just interesting when all these modalities will kind of come together, the EMR plus the imaging, and now start to actually really expand our world of, diagnostics.
I had one more question that I wanted to ask, and I think it actually is really relevant to what you were talking about in terms of bringing it to new areas of the hospital. So a lot of the people who are watching are just beginning their cardiology AI journey or their echo AI journey. What advice do you have to them, whether it's a cardiology department of a hospital or a practice who's looking to bring in echo AI? What do you suggest they do to make sure that they do it the right way and have all the different parties on board and everything else?
Yeah, so I think the ROI is number one. Number two is ROI, and number three is ROI. I mean, it's what it is. But joking aside, though, getting buy-in from all the parts and carefully crafting that everyone who comes to the table has buy-in. Like we said, the technicians, right? The technicians and the doctors are the ones that are doing this. If they're not interested in this, they'll blow any pilot because it's not to their benefit. So it's really aligning that all parties are going to be benefiting from it is one, and then being able to have a clear metric. Like for us, it was okay, well, there's cost to this. Yes, there's savings on it. It's a little bit hard to always demonstrate. Oh, I'm going to definitely increase volume. There's a lot of things that go into that. But definitely being able to say for us, where we said, okay, we have a cost, we have a benefit, which would be being able to bill. And so that was for us, for example, on strain, and we were able to demonstrate when we bill strain, if we have authorization, that's key. You have to line up all the different departments. So if you're in a hospital, you got to get finance on board, you have to have IT on board, and you have to show a clear way and demonstrate that this is it's gonna win. We've done many pilots where the technology is great, but if in the end there's just more cost and it's just, a quality initiative, somebody's got to pay for it. And so we really need to be able to show that. So I would say that's probably the most important thing. And number two is make sure everyone that you're trying to get to use this is bought in.
Seth, what do you think?
Yeah, I go back to my Blockbuster and Netflix. I like to use analogies. I think it gets people to feel comfortable that, we're not the first person that's done this. We've seen many of these technologies evolve over time. And to Jeff's point, they don't happen overnight. It's evolution, not revolution. So, Blockbuster went away. Netflix, initially was mailing DVDs, if you remember, right? It wasn't the streaming service we know today. So there was some steps involved. And so, as we start to do more of these integrations to some of these CVIS and CPAC systems, today, a lot of them are like interfaces. So, my favorite analogy is, you remember the iPhone, when it came out, we plugged it into our car into a cigarette lighter, and we played the music over a low FM, band, and so that we could talk to mom and dad from the car. And those were what I call interfacing. And I think that's a lot of what we're doing today is we're interfacing. Now, when we get into a car, there's CarPlay, and the car just recognizes that I have the phone. It has a screen built in. I see that screen, replicated, and it's tightly integrated, and the experience is much richer. And so I think the real opportunity here is, as we start to integrate this technology either into the carts or into the CVIS, cardiovascular information system, so that it feels more like it's native to the process in terms of being able to adjust measurements and have that update the guidelines and do everything in real time. So I'm pretty excited about, where we are today in terms of just being able to interface or get the data into the systems off the shelf. But I think the next evolution of this is, much tighter integration where the experience is, such that nobody will ever want to make measurements on a cart. There's just no need. Let the AI do what it's good at doing, and then let the expert human become the editor and do it in a way that, again, just continues to add to the efficiency and the experience.
Thanks so much, both of you. This is really interesting stuff, and it's great to see, a lot of the AI stuff that we cover still feels, theoretical almost. And this is some real world use and efforts to bring it into physician and clinicians' lives and patients' lives and improve the efficacy and efficiency of echo. So that's awesome. I hope that the folks watching, picked up the same ROI, but also getting buy-in and testing and collaboration and everything else to make sure that you're doing it the right way. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Bander, Seth. Thank you for joining us. And for the folks watching, go ahead and check out what you just saw is of interest and applicable to what you're doing on your team. Check out Us2.ai. If you are a patient in New York City, go check out Mount Sinai maybe. And thanks. Catch you next time.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks.
Thank you.